Your top table party, led in by the President of the Old Stations Association, Mr. Kevin Waller. Please be seated. We have a fabulous attendance. Thank you all for being with us. Fellow Old Stationers, it's a pleasure to introduce our special guests this afternoon, in no particular order. Firstly, may we introduce the Master of the Stationers' Company, Mr. Paul Wilson. Secondly, the Clerk of the Stationers' Company and star of Casualty. By that, I don't mean he goes down to A&E regularly. I'm talking about the television programme. But please welcome our good friend, Mr. Giles Fagan. Kevin Waller emailed me to ask about my participation this afternoon. For some reason, his email went straight into my junk file. Now that's a file that I very rarely open, because of course these days you have to be so careful with the content. I get loads of emails from Screwfix. It's a DIY site. I realise that now. I was expecting something entirely different days ago, and I saw his impassioned plea about today. Suffice to say that his message contained the inimitable phrase, "We couldn't find anybody else," published in the OSA magazine. So I had that reference to turn to. And the first quote from Kevin in that speech that I picked up on was when he said, "At the school, I excelled at rugby." Well, that's not really for you to judge, is it? He then went on to talk about a rugby training day at Winchmore Hill, when Kevin was the victim of a particularly aggressive tackle from the then master in charge of rugby, Mr. Vic Van Gran. Indeed, so aggressive was that tackle that Kevin sustained a broken collarbone and concussion. So you really weren't that good, were you, Kevin? After all, you were a fly half. You're supposed to be lithe, supple and elusive. If you couldn't see the other fly half coming at you from 3 feet, something wrong, surely. And yet more information from Kevin. Very, very bizarrely, that same rugby master actually introduced Kevin to his very first girlfriend. The occasion was a combined senior school trip to take on the Pennine Walk. That poor girl. Where are you taking me, Kevin? Are you taking me to a restaurant? Are you taking me to the pictures? No, I'm taking you up the Pennine Way. Fortunately, she was too young for euphemisms. But the thing is, Kevin, you haven't seen that girl for 53 years.
And here she is.
And if you look towards that door, you still won't see it. Some of you actually looked. No, even our illustrious membership secretary, Roger Engledow, who could locate an old stationer on a desert island, especially if they hadn't paid their subs, even he couldn't find her. So, Kevin, your Pennine secrets are safe, for now. But after that horrific injury, I expect Kevin regretted not taking his father's advice to choose football instead of rugby. Kevin's father had been a semi-professional footballer, and he so wanted Kevin to follow in his footsteps. But no, he'd rather get mullered on the rugby pitch. But that did start me thinking as to what sort of footballer might Kevin be. Would he have been a Robin van Persie, a Ruud van Nistelrooy, Marco van Basten, or a Denise van Outen? We'll have to judge that for ourselves. But also as a result of that rugby injury, Kevin decided that he needed to start working out and really toughen himself up. And he did. So much so that he was able to land a part-time job in several high-quality London nightclubs as a bouncer. What about that then? Our president, the bouncer. The next speech quote from Kevin that intrigued me was when he said, "Stationer School made me a well-rounded individual." Well, that's not really for you to judge, is it, Kevin? Certainly your school reports don't confirm or deny that. But I discovered that the two most frequently used words in all of Kevin's school reports were potential and however. And then the next quote in Kevin's speech: "The school gave me a balanced moral compass and a sense of fair play." Well, that's not really for you to judge, is it? But having said that, we do know that the school gave Kevin the gift of initiative. Let me explain. For his French O-level exam, Kevin should by rights have received a grade of D, a grade of C, because he went into the exam room wearing a beret. Classy. Kevin concluded that presidential speech in May last year by saying, "I promise to ensure that the interests of the Old Stations Association are preserved and improved upon." What? Improved upon? Now that's not saying a lot for all previous presidents. Don't worry, I'm here now, I'll improve things. Nice one, Kev. After that, I think it's time we quickly turn our attention to the master of the station's company, Mr. Paul Wilson. Again, I confess that I didn't know a great deal about Paul. But as luck would have it, Paul had spoken at our autumn lunch in September last year. And his words were also included in the OSA magazine. And Paul, I read with great interest that you worked for banknote printer De La Rue. And that truly resonated with me, because I used to supply plain and watermarked check paper to De La Rue, or Thomas De La Rue as they were back then. In fact, I've still got some reels in my garage. If you've got any of the printing plates, we could be on. But I honed in to one piece of Paul's speech about his other career working with the Foreign Office, where he said, "I was personally selected to open a mission in Afghanistan because I was a regional expert. It should have been a straightforward flight out of Kabul. But Paul had to experience heavy gunfire, explosions, rocket-propelled grenades, rebellious tribal camps, and an unplanned diversion through the Khyber Pass. Paul, that's Ryanair for you. And that brings me to our good friend, the clerk of the stationer's company, Mr. Giles Bailey. Fellow old stationers, we should truly express our gratitude for Giles for choosing to be with us today instead of being at home celebrating his wife's birthday. Gentlemen, we all recognise that that was a bold decision. I know it went to VAR. Very awkward reaction. But it was Giles the right decision. And as it's his wife's birthday, Bradley, can we get a bottle of champagne? No? Okay, thanks. You can take it out of my fee for this afternoon, all right? I'll pay the difference. Now, I'll wait, don't worry. Now, Giles didn't make a speech in May or September last year, but then he didn't need to. We know what we need to know about him. My earlier reference to Giles being a star of Casualty was absolutely true. He appeared in one episode of that BBC show, Series 19, episode 25 to be exact. He played a policeman and he was very, very good. In fact, Giles had the honour of delivering the crucial line in the early part of that episode. And the way he delivered the line, "Good morning," it was pivotal. Honestly, it was like a combining together of Kenneth Branagh, Robert De Niro, Daniel Day-Lewis and Sid James. Fellow old stations, I urge you to watch that episode if you can. You'll find it on the History Channel. But fellow old stations, the main point of all of this, I knew I'd get there eventually. The main point is that Kevin, Paul and Giles have all reached the pinnacle of their respective positions. Kevin, you have steered the good ship old stationers admirably, with no controversies. Or very few. We thank you for being our president, and of course we wish Frank Clapp every success for his forthcoming year of office. Giles, the role of the clerk includes so many varied duties, and you always take each one in your stride. The Old Stationers Association truly values its relationship with the Stationers Company. And Giles, your personal support for us is a solid part of that relationship. And Paul, you had a very tough act to follow in our own Tony Mash, but you picked up the master's baton seamlessly, and you've continued to take the Stationers Company forward as a result. We wish you well for the remaining 3 months of your tenure. So, fellow old stationers, may I please thank you all for allowing me to welcome you, to introduce the guests, to call the President's toasts, to introduce the speakers, to give the guest speech, and to give a formal toast. I've got a bit of washing up to do, but after that I shall be heading down to the cockpit to start my shift. But before that, would you all please stand to join me in my toast, which is to the worshipful company of stationers and newspaper makers, and the Old Stationers Association.
Nobody told me that you were actually hiring a professional stand-up comedian. I'll just say a few words about, just to bring you up to speed with what's going on with the Stationers Company and with the hall. A number of people now have seen the hall in its new kind of remodeled format. And I was speaking to Michael Brady just a little while ago. Where is Michael? Where is he? Was there. He was. Right. So Michael, as a professional architect, confirmed that yes, the solution that our architects came up with is a really good solution. It solves the problems we had of trying to get through from one part of the building to the other. There's 17 different floor levels, which if you're my age is quite significant. You know, the circulation around the building, the improvement in the air cooling, all these things have gone down really well. And both members of the company and other livery companies have commented really positively. So that's really good news. And all the modern facilities have been incorporated without losing the character of the historic building. And I should note that your president was very much involved in the design and preparation phase of that whole exercise. So I think we have a thank you to say to him for that as well. The hall itself has been a triumph in terms of you know, developing it as a site, making it more lettable and making it more comfortable. Last year, commercial activities were very successful. It's one of the best years that many people can recall. Organisations like the Times, Telegraph, Guardian, so the full spectrum of politics, and also the BBC. So these are quite encouraging signs in terms of membership. And of course, a lot of the charitable activity, the bursaries we give to young people who are coming into our trades, publishing, journalism, whatever, comes out of the company's foundation, which has an endowed capital of about 4 million quid, of which 1 million was stems back to the sale of your school in 1983. It immediately went into an education pot, and it continues to do good service, providing bursaries for youngsters. Perhaps also of interest to you is the fact that the Stationers Crown Woods Academy, which is kind of the echo of your own school, was renamed Lee Stationers Academy at the beginning of this academic year, September 2024. And a new school has come under the banner of Stationers, that's Eastcote Primary, which is now Lee Stationers Primary Academy, and both are supported by the Stationers Company financially and through governance. So all the efforts that started way back in the 1850s by this company, long before government ever took an interest in running education, we're still in the thick of it. This is very clever. This is the clerk testing the master. There was a sixth point, but that was it, really. Yeah. Anyway, that's an update. I don't want to drone on for much longer. It is a delight to be here with a lot of people who have come from very similar circumstances to myself, born at about the same time, give or take. London, some of you grammar school boys, others more recently in the comprehensive system. It's a great pleasure to be here and to be around you all, and thank you very much for inviting us. Long may you prosper.
Gentlemen, your appreciation for the Master of the Stationers Company. Mr. Moore. And gentlemen, with due respect to the previous speakers, we now come to the top of the bill. To give the response on behalf of the Old Stationers Association, would you please welcome our President, Mr. Kevin Waller.
Master, clerk, distinguished guests and gentlemen of the Old Stationers Association, thank you for attending the annual luncheon at this wonderful venue of Stationers Company Hall. I'm going to quote what you just said actually on your previous speech, because I didn't know you were going to say this. The school gave me a first-rate education, made me a well-rounded individual with a balanced moral compass. And because of that, friends, some 58 years later, addressing you all as presidents of the Old Statesmen Association and liverymen of the company. It seems a world away from my first school reports where the lines could be better if he applied himself were the most prevalent.
However.
When I made my first speech, I hope that we all continue to meet and dine together as friends, and I am pleased that we have continued to do so. It is a great institution, and we must find a path to nurture it, take it forward, and flourish. It now falls upon another to accept the role going forward, and I have complete confidence that Frank Clapp will lead the association well, without fear or favour, and always with the best interests of the old stationers at heart. Would you like to say a few words, Frank? Or would you not?
Well, perhaps I'll wait until you put that horrible blazer on.
Okay, in which case, I will adorn you with a blazer. Which one would you prefer?
I'm not too sure which
Let's try this one first. Mr. Past President, fellow old stationers, master of the company, clerk of the company. It was going to fit before I went on the usual all-inclusive holiday in February, but at the moment, whilst it sits on me, it doesn't actually do up. So hopefully by the time we get to the May lunch, I might have lost a few pounds and it will fit. It makes me really humble actually to stand here today in front of you all, having only sort of come in the early part of last year to take over as the Vice President of this wonderful association, having been a member for many, many years. A number of my 1963 intake are lurking at the far end there, waving away, and particularly after Peter Winter, I say it's very honoured to actually be here this evening, or this afternoon even. It's most unfortunate in many respects that it's been delayed for a day or a week, because later on, shortly, some of us will be decamping to Mark Mason's Hall in St James's, where the school lodge is due to meet. Fortunately, our secretary has managed to persuade Mark Mason's Hall that we don't have to dine there this evening, because I think a three-course lunch at lunchtime and then a three-course lunch in the evening, this wouldn't have got anywhere near after that. I will certainly do my best to honour all what has been undertaken by the past presidents in the past. I won't go as far as to say I will improve it. I will just try and maintain what has been undertaken. My biggest challenge this year is to retain the win from the cricket match last year. Unfortunately, after 30 years, I was persuaded to actually bowl. And at one stage, Jeff Blackmore said, "No ball." I thought, what happened there? Did I overstep the mark? He said, no. He said, the ball bounced twice before it reached the batsman.